Oh, hi. Good evening. Here's Frederique. I'm the founder of Family Quilt, and I wanted to welcome you to our first ever, more like it actually, Family Quilt live feed on Facebook. Now, we are a young business, we're a small business, and we thought it would be really good to give you a little bit of background and talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, what we believe in, where the idea came from, and that kind of stuff. So hopefully for the next few minutes, we're going to be together, and please ask questions, whatever you think, whatever goes your mind. I'll try to answer them if I can read them on the screen properly. So there we go. So welcome again, and let me just start maybe by telling you a little bit about myself. So I'm Frederique. I'm the founder, as you can see from my face on your screen. I am not a young chicken anymore. I'm what I like to call a mature entrepreneur. I have two boys of Jack and Tom, and they're 23 and 21. I'm married. I live in the south of England, and you can probably hear though from my oh, hi cat, that's nice, we've got somebody following, this is so exciting. Yes, so where do I start? I'm French, and actually I come from the south of France, even if I have been in the UK since 1988. I came for 6 months for an exchange, and I was there 20 years later, having met my husband, and as one says, the rest is history. I'm lucky enough that I've still got both my parents. They both live in the south of France as well. And I've still also got my father-in-law and my mother-in-law. So really we have a lot of our parents, kind of around. And that's really where the story starts with Family Quilt. I have to say I was never really big into family. I mean, I left home, I was 19. I went to study for business, in the north of France. And I think when you're 19, you're very much kind of in your own little bubble, really. And I felt, it was all about my life and what was coming and all those exciting things that I wanted to do. And then at 22, I came to England, and I never really asked that many questions of my parents. Oh, hi, Jennifer. Never really asked that many questions of my parents, and never really felt it really did matter. In a way, I knew my parents, I'd always known them, kind of thing. And it was only quite a few years later when we were sitting around at a Christmas table, and my dad by then was 90 years old, and he started talking about my grandparents. And I have vivid memories of my grandparents. My grandfather passed away when I was 15, and my grandmother actually was at my wedding, and she passed away. I was closer to 30, and she was quite a grand lady, really. And he started talking about his parents and how they had met, and stories of them that I'd never heard, because it was when they were very young, and obviously I'd only ever known my parents as my grandparents, as kind of older people. And at that point I kind of thought, gosh, you know what, I mean, one day my dad will go, and when he goes, he will take with him my grandparents' stories, and he will also take with him his own stories. And I felt a little bit sad about it, I have to say. And it was probably the first time, I mean, I know it sounds crazy to think I waited till my father was 90 to kind of realize that he wasn't going to be there forever. But I suppose, really it did hit me that Christmas. And it wasn't that long after that, actually, that my father-in-law came on the phone one night, and he'd been watching The Crown. And he had absolutely vivid memories of the king dying, and where he was at school at the day. And it really, again, kind of made me realize that, those are people that have been there for quite some time, and I've got fabulous stories to tell. And that most of the time, actually, we don't really ask those questions. And that's where the idea came from, really, of Family Quilt. And with Family Quilt, what we've tried to create is a safe digital online space where families can share their stories. They can capture them, and they can then share them across the family, so that hopefully they don't get lost and the memories stay alive. I think that's what we say on our on our website, and that's really been the kind of the adventure. Oh, hello, Claire. Oh, we've got people coming in. I'm so excited. When it came to kind of making it happen, I was lucky, because then I turned to my mother-in-law on that one, and I asked her to be my guinea pig. And And for quite a few months, actually, hello, Caroline, she answered questions, week in, week out. We would ask questions and about her life when she was young, or stuff more recently with her grandchildren. And we had some really lovely stories. And I think that really made us think that that was the right thing to do. And it was really worth it, because it was so lovely to discover so many things about her that we didn't know. So we set off to then create a system. Now, I mean, I'm not a tech person, and to be honest, it was truly terrifying actually to do it, but excited at the same time, because you kind of think this is new and hopefully this is going to be wonderful and it's going to be help families, and so there was all sort of good stuff going on in my head. And I wanted the system. The first thing I think was we wanted it to be really simple, and that's because we know that a 5-year-old can handle an iPad, but we wanted to make sure that the system could also be handled by a 20 or 30, and more importantly a 90-year-old, because I wanted my dad to collect quite a few of his stories on the system. The other thing about the system is we wanted it to be able to, for people to be able to collect their stories, either writing them or actually physically voice recording them. I certainly thought voice was a really incredible memories that one could have, and you would be able to keep that memory forever, because we have pictures, but there is something really quite special to be able to hear, whether it's a voice actually of your children or the voices of your parents. And kind of reminds me, actually, kind of on a bit of a tangent, but recently I was listening to a video that we took on our holidays when we went walking, a long walk, and my youngest son at the time was voicing the video, and Tom was probably about 12 or 13, so his voice hadn't broken, and we lived at the time in Australia, and he had a really strong accent. And now you listen to this voice recording, and the memories came flooding back in of what he was like when he was young, and his voice has changed. So voice, we felt, I certainly thought was really important, whether you were trying to record the memories of a 90-year-old, or of my own memories, or my children's kind of voice as they were kind of growing up. And obviously we wanted the memories for people to be able to write them. The other thing is we wanted people to enjoy looking at the stories, because there is something quite lovely about reminiscing, and we've been doing photo books for a long time. Actually, we started, the first one we did was in 2003, and there is something lovely about going through the pages and kind of remembering. And we thought, we need to be able, for people to be able to view all of their stories and kind of in a way go through the stories and decide where to click and what to watch, and really feel warm in their heart that the stories are lovely, and they like remembering them. We also wanted to be able for people to share with their families. And I mean, for me, it was particularly important because I don't live anywhere near my father, or I don't live anywhere near my mother, or I don't live anywhere near my sister either. And my children have left home as well. So actually, it's kind of quite nice to be able to share just at a click of the button, and be able to see what has been, kind of written. And actually, my dad called me today because he has written a new story, and he wanted me to know. But actually, I knew he had done it because I'd received an email at home telling me that he had filed a new story, and it was lovely to be able to talk about it. And probably the last thing is we wanted something that was affordable. You can write biography, your own autobiography, but it costs you a fortune to get somebody to come and listen to it. So we wanted something that everybody, kind of would do. And so that's what we set out to do when, I briefed the designers about the kind of system. And I have to say that the team, Graham and the team, were absolutely fabulous and completely bought into what we were trying to do, and really, really liked the idea and wanted to help me. And it was the same when he came to the name, because obviously we needed a name, and my working name initially was Family Stories, which was pretty boring actually, but hey ho. And so I called a guy that I used to work with in my corporate days, and Dave put me in touch with Troy, a guy in his team, and Troy just again really loved the idea, and Troy and Kaylee basically did all the work to come up with a name. And they had a few ideas, but when they came up really and they presented, and actually they told my mother-in-law and I, and we were kind of trying to debate what the name was right, and then I passed it by my husband and my children. Absolutely everybody loved the idea of Family Quilt. It felt like it was just right, because the idea of a family quilt is kind of a mishmash of things, and they don't really all make sense, and but you add them up together, and when you put them all together, you then have something that is really beautiful. And that's really, in a way, the way it works for the stories of your life. They are kind of connected and not connected, but at the end of the day, they kind of all make sense, you know, together. And so Family Quilt was really, you know, kind of a brilliantly perfect idea. We really liked that. And so off we went, and the system went live finally at the beginning of May. We've had some people, you know, obviously kind of come on it, and it's been really lovely to have some fabulous feedback of people saying how much they've enjoyed reading or writing, you know, kind of, and collecting their stories. And that's been really heartwarming. And to be fair, nothing has been more heartwarming actually than reading my father's stories, because in a way that's where we started, and it's my own very little experience of what it's been like. And you know, and it has brought us closer. I think it has made me discover my father when he was a man that I didn't know, because he's been telling stories when he was very young, and which obviously we hadn't heard. Actually, he told a story about coming to London in 1949, which my children were absolutely flabbergasted about. So this has been really, you know, a really fabulous adventure for the family. And I think that's what we really are about. That's what we're trying to do, to kind of make people value, you know, their memories, and realize that, you know, family is so, so important, because at the end of the day, this is who we are, and that's what it comes down to. And that kind of sense of a legacy, of what you leave your children, and, you know, or what you leave your grandchildren when it comes to my parents and my in-laws, I think is really lovely, because they will have something that they can treasure, you know, kind of forever. Now, I have to say, Family Quilt, initially I really thought about it because of my parents, but in reality, I've had some fabulous feedback about other use. And we have recently done, my youngest one was 21, a couple of months back, and we did a quilt for him, and we went back to our family and we asked them to put down memories of him they had growing up. My husband wrote stuff about, you know, Tom, and when he was doing sport when he was younger, and in a way we've given him some memories that he never had, because obviously he doesn't remember it. I mean, you know, he was too young to remember. And so you kind of also have another kind of way of using it, which is about kind of recreating the memories, you know, for your children. And I started writing some, which makes a lot of sense as well, because my husband recently had gone back to uni, and he graduated again, you know, with a PhD, and it was a lovely occasion, and I felt that that was something that, again, we would want to capture. And when you write a story, there's something about it that is more really than the photos, because you can capture the occasion, the emotion, and you know, therefore, that you'll never forget, because when we look back sometime in some of our old books, you kind of know where it was, but you don't exactly remember what was said, or you don't remember that kind of nugget of thing that made you feel what it was all about. So, what the story was all about. So, in a little nutshell, this was trying to kind of inspire you, I suppose, to try capturing your own stories and hopefully enjoy just as much as we have. And whatever questions, please, guys, keep firing them, and I will try and answer them. I've tried to answer quite a few of them, I suppose, as I've gone along. But that was a little snippet of what I could talk about when it comes to Family Quilt, which, you know, has been quite an adventure, and hopefully can be also an adventure for you and your families, you know, when you start collecting your stories. And unless anybody has any questions, I think... Oh, I have a question. How long does it take to upload a memory and a photo? Well, actually, frankly, it takes absolutely no time at all. When you enter in the system, you get a kind of a dashboard. So all you have to do is to click on Add a Story, if you know what you want to write about, or you can just have a quick browse about some of the questions that we can give you. We have about 150 questions in the system to help you get started. So all you have to do is click there, put in your title, and then you write as much or as little as you want. You know, I keep saying to people, because some people get terrified at the idea, oh my God, unless I have this amazing story, you know, that is going to last and be really long, then, you know, they don't want to answer, but to write it. But actually it doesn't matter. Just get writing. It doesn't matter. You know, if it's 3 lines, 30 lines, 300 lines, just write them. You can always edit the story, so you can absolutely come back to it. So I would say it can take as little as 15 seconds, you know, if all you have is a photo and a couple of liners for the caption. Or we can take hours, you know, if you really want to write, you know, kind of half a book. You can upload, because I can see the question, you can upload this from a mobile just as much as you can upload from a desktop or, what's the name, you know, kind of an iPad kind of thing. The difference is, I think, if you, for voice recording, you have to do it on a desktop. For some reason, you know, it was a harder thing to do on the mobile phone. But for writing, you absolutely can do it. And it's not really an app, actually. It's accessible through the website. So you go on your normal browser, and you kind of put in the you know, the address, and then from there on you can just log in. It's all obviously uber secure. You can choose how, a password, and you can even have a two-step authentication if you wanted to. But it is, you know, kind of very secure and very easy. You can access it on the go. There you go. So Michael is watching as well. Well, thanks, Michael. Oh, that's nice, actually. Michael's wife, Keely, was our nanny, and she looked after our children in their very first years, and that was she was wonderful. And we've recently seen them and their children. Beautiful family. Anyway, there you go. Oh, he likes that. So do I. So that's it. I'm just trying to think whether there is anything else to tell you about Family Quilt. And look, hopefully we'll be doing this again. So thank you for joining. I've enjoyed it. I was actually terrified of doing it, but I've actually quite enjoyed it, and hopefully you've enjoyed it too. So for the time being, that's it, I think, for tonight. Okay, bye guys.